So it's a day that ends in Y, which, as you all know, that means the Daily Wire is obsessing over trans people. We've all gotten kind of used to it, but they're still extremist, they're still insane, and they're still showing their whole ass to the world. So let's listen to their new diatribe against trans people.
Transgender people have the right to work. Transgender people have the right to a job. No, they don't.
The Daily Wire has lost their normie touch a very long time ago. You know, they just like, look, they tried for a while to make it appealing, to be like, we just care about protecting the kids. That's what we do. And then they're seething with such anger and hatred towards trans people that in a very short time frame, it went from, we're trying to protect the kids, to even adults shouldn't be able to transition. And this is what happens. As soon as you lose your normie touch, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And now you have people saying things like this.
Transgender people have the right to work. Transgender people have the right to a job. No, they don't. And they don't because there's no such category as transgender people.
It just keeps getting worse. It just keeps getting worse. Look, this is an objective question, right? It really is. Do trans people exist? Well, what is a trans person? Trans person is somebody who's basically born with biological sex one way, but they feel their gender is the opposite, and so they transition. Some people don't get any sort of surgery at all, but many trans people do. So the question is, does that exist? There is no debate. They're trying to make there be a debate. There's no debate. Of course they exist. They're as real as gay people are, which, by the way, they might say that doesn't exist either, right? But they're also as real as straight people are. Smaller numbers, of course, but it's real. It's not, like, why is it so hard to wrap your mind around this concept, man? It's really not that difficult. Some people are born one way, but they feel like the opposite. And living in alignment with how they feel makes them a lot happier. Makes them feel a hell of a lot better. Like, gender dysphoria is a real thing. It exists.
Because there's no such category as transgender people. There are just people. There are people, and people are defined in a certain way, and people are defined by things outside of their own self-perception and their own disordered desires.
Disordered desire. Okay. Yes, people are people. But we also have just objective descriptors. Like, you know, somebody could be trans, somebody could be gay, somebody could be straight and cis. Like, I don't even know what he's getting. I don't even know what he's trying to get at here. I don't even know. It's just another, like, it's a day that ends in Y, so I have to talk about trans people and in one way or another be like, fuck them.
By things outside of their own self-perception and their own disordered desires. There is no such thing as a transgender person. There are just people, and some people are confused, and some people have fallen into fantasies, and some people are pursuing disordered sexual desires and fetishes.
What does a trans person have to do with disordered sexual desires? Whether or not somebody is trans has no, you know, bearing on what they're into sexually. It's a separate thing. Like, of course, there are people who have some very questionable sexual desires, but that's also across the board, by the way. It's not like only trans people have weird sexual desires. Plenty of people have weird sexual desires.
And some people are pursuing disordered sexual desires and fetishes. But that doesn't change who and what they really are. And so a man does not have any right to dress up in public life as a woman.
Of course they do. They absolutely do. There's no law, there's no rule or regulation that says you have to dress in the way that coincides with your biological sex at birth. That doesn't exist. You literally have the right to do what he's saying you don't have the right to do. I know in his ideal world, they would have an authoritarian mandate that you must dress like a man if you were born biologically a man. And you must live in a Leave It to Beaver-like situation. You're gonna, one man, one woman, married, 2 kids, white picket fence, dog, and you're gonna dress like I tell you to dress. Who gives a shit, man? I can't thinking about shit like this. I cannot imagine it. We have people who don't have health care. We have people who are dying in wars. We have hundreds of thousands of homeless people. We have tens of thousands of homeless U.S. veterans. This is the shit he cares about, man.
To dress up in public life as a woman. And a man does not have a right to dress up like a woman to go do whatever job he wants. The Supreme Court, unfortunately, has ruled that a man does have that right.
You don't have that right. So, I mean, you do have it, but I'm going to say you don't have it.
And you saw this specifically in the Harris Funeral Homes case just a few years ago.
I love how he's like up on all the case law around gay issues and trans issues. Like he knows the names of the cases. This is what he spends all night reading and jacking off to. I mean, just reading.
And you've seen this in the Bostock decision, which says that civil rights protections on the basis of sex are actually, when you really think about it, civil rights protections on the basis of gender identity. And this is an absurd Supreme Court ruling, and it should certainly be overturned, as many Supreme Court rulings have been overturned in American history.
Effectively, what he's saying there is anti-discrimination protection should not extend to trans people. That's the argument he's making. So he's arguing for legal discrimination against trans people. That's the point he's making.
You don't have the right to do it. And transgenderism is such a hot issue that sometimes it's difficult.
It is hot, isn't it? It is hot, Michael. I know you think it is, fella. I know.
For the liberals to see past it because they just are so invested in transcending the boundaries of reality.
Yeah, the liberals. They're really obsessed with this issue, man. I would love it. I'm probably a left outlet that talks about these things more than any other left outlet at this point, strictly because I'm playing defense against these psychopaths, right? But compare how much I've talked about it to how often they talk about it. They blow me out of the water. I mean, it is not even close. Again, it's a day that ends in Y. By the way, apropos of nothing, here's Michael Knowles back when he was trying to be an actor, and he failed. And he wanted to give you a little show here.
Okay, new scene. Haley and Jamie getting out on the mattresses. Their brother and sister.
All right, dude. All right, look, it's hard to not conclude that he's still an actor, right? He's playing the role. It's hard to not conclude that. It really is. Because, I don't know, you can't be this obsessed with this. Matt Walsh, too, like, how the hell are you this obsessed with this? And by the way, it has gotten beyond deranged. This is actually rather tame compared to other things I've seen within the past week. Like, this is just, I don't think you have a right to a job, right? I want to get rid of the anti-discrimination protections. Matt Walsh was on Twitter the other day basically saying, trans stuff comes originally from the Nazis. There's literally a record of trans people going back 4,500 years. So they've existed in countless societies. So maybe they've just always sort of been around like gay people have as well. Just back in the day, it was more in the closet, it was more repressed. Anyway, I don't think I need to say any more. This stuff is beyond deranged. I can't imagine somebody who sits there and like soaks this stuff up on a daily basis. Like, why? What's the point? This is your obsession? Like, let me figure out how to make life more difficult for trans people. I know you think it either doesn't exist or it does exist and it's degeneracy and it's wrong because it's outside of the normal order of things or whatever. But to what ends? To what ends? You're never going to abolish it. You're never going to get rid of it. So you just want to make their life as difficult as possible? Why? Why? Just for pure hatred or to trigger the libs or whatever? Like, what's the point, man? What's the point? You can't base a politics off of, here are the things I don't like. You got to base politics on what am I in favor of? What is a net good for society? Unless, of course, you're one of those people who doesn't want any good for society. But that's nihilistic, and if that's, your perspective, just don't even get involved in politics. Go pick up fucking Parcheesi or volleyball or whatever, some other shit that doesn't ruin people's lives with your engagement in it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.